Hello, and welcome to the Common Geeking Program. We are a book club-style podcast where each episode we discuss a different topic from our own geeky and nerdy perspectives. I am your host, as always, Jeff Leavitt, and this week we are joined by two lovely people. You guys want to introduce yourselves?
I haven't been called lovely in some time, Jeff, and I want to say I appreciate you and how you support me as an individual.
You're the other person on the episode. I thought it was Austin. My B. One lovely person and Colin.
Hey, me! I'm lovely.
I didn't even get to say my name.
You.
Well, my name's Colin, and apparently no one gives a fuck.
I give a little bit of a fuck, Colin. Just like the minimal amount, the minimal acceptable amount.
The minimal amount of fuck?
Yeah, I give an adequate amount of fucks.
Who are you?
Oh, and I'm Ryan Mossberg there. Hey, guys.
Who are you to give a fuck?
I've not been super consistent, but it's great to be back.
And speaking of Ryan, this week I'm gonna have Ryan kind of pitch our topic here. So Ryan, you want to tell us what we're all about this month on the Common Geeking Program?
Oh fuck yes, I'm gonna tell you what it's about. I am so pumped that y'all wanted to talk more about Eberron. I've got all my papers ready. One second.
Wait, what?
Organizing.
Wait, I wasn't on
because we loved talking about it so much the first time.
I was not there. I don't know. Wait, should I get chowder? What the?
It's gonna be better.
It's fine.
I prepped a quick 15-page Google Doc for you guys to reference.
Jesus
All you need to do is find it, and that's it. I just need to figure out a good starting place. I'm thinking maybe Dragon Guards. Dragon Guards? Does that sound good?
Oh. So listen.
Are you going to do anything about this, Jeff? I was not prepared for this.
We really we didn't really go in depth on dragon marked houses. Oh, you know what? We did not even touch the last war. Just hold on a sec. A few weeks back, I bought the Forge of War. It's an official setting book that actually goes into excruciating
I'm gonna
details.
just go
on the 100 years of the last war. I'll be right
Ryan,
back.
Could I just cut you off right here, my fam?
What? Yeah. What do you mean?
So listen, Ryan. We've got some news to break to you.
Well, what is it, guys? Did Keith Baker get coronavirus?
So we may have told you a little bit of a white lie here, Ryan. We're not actually going to be talking about D&D again today. We just had to tell you that to get you on the episode.
What? Aren't you guys excited to talk about Eberron?
You have kind of a problem here, all right? You're a little bit obsessed with Eberron. You just go on for like 20 minutes at a time, and you just... It's just real repetitive. So we had to, get you here with D&D as the like, the hook. But we're gonna be pushing you a little bit out of your comfort zone, and we're gonna be talking about something else. Okay?
Yeah. Because I didn't sign up for Eberron or an intervention, so I guess I'm just along for the fucking ride today.
Well.
So today's topic is actually going to be the television show Broadchurch. It's on Netflix.
I am so fucking pumped about this show. I'm sad that there aren't any more seasons, but it's something I went through again recently. So I guess I'm just a big fan of David Tennant and all Tennant-related vehicles.
Yeah, so Broadchurch is actually a great show. We'll just start off with the summary right here. It stars David Tennant. It's kind of a bit of a detective series. He plays...
Actually, since Ryan pitched the topic this week, Ryan, why don't you talk to us about Broadchurch?
Yeah, why don't you talk about Broadchurch, Ryan?
Oh, yeah, Broadchurch has got the David Tennant vehicle, and it's a vehicle for David Tennant as far as I know, and maybe I don't know, guys, maybe we could talk about something that I know about.
Okay, let's just can we agree on something at least then? Here I thought Ryan would carry us through the town of Broadchurch.
I don't think we can agree on anything.
I feel a little bit surprised here. I feel like, this is all at my expense. I spent the last 20 hours in the past 2 days collating what I would think is a masterpiece of a document for Eberron. Yeah, there's a lot of... Yes, my vision board is covered in red twine and pictures of Keith Baker and his family. But that means nothing. That means nothing now. It's all nothing.
So why don't we just compromise here and find the polar middle between Broadchurch and D&D Eberron? Why don't we talk about Altered Carbon?
Coincidentally, I did just finish watching Altered Carbon today, so I think this is the way to go.
Yeah, now that you think about it, it is in the title of the episode. Isn't that weird?
Wait. Let me do the math on that to try the actual mean between Eberron and Broadchurch. Gotta square that too. And up. Oh, shit. You're right.
It's the exact center.
It's the exact center. It's the Lagrange point between the Earth that is Eberron.
Turns out there are a lot more television series than there are role-playing games.
That's true.
We're not talking about the Broadchurch-based RPG.
Where every adventure starts off with a child being murdered.
Yeah, and I'm that child. And my hopes and dreams are getting murdered. But no, fun fact, Altered Carbon is actually getting its own RPG.
Is that what that was? Okay,
Well,
I saw something about
RPG,
it.
I suppose.
Oh, so because I meant to look this up beforehand, but I kind of forgot about it. But I saw something the other day. What is Altered Carbon New Sleeve or whatever? Is that what it is?
Re-Sleeved.
Well,
it's an upcoming
Re-Sleeved.
anime set in the
There's
same
an anime.
universe on
Okay.
Netflix.
That's what I meant to look up. So that's interesting. Anyway, we are actually talking about Altered Carbon today. As confusing as that may be.
Yeah, they did not tell me about the Broadchurch part, so my surprise was genuine, and I was like, "Oh fuck! Did I look up the wrong stuff?" I felt that we had just talked about Altered Carbon.
Yeah, that was kind of the vibe we were hoping for, honestly.
All right, now that nobody knows what's happening and we're all laughing about different things, let's talk about a show that not all of us have finished.
Editor of this episode with a real quick message. Then we'll be back to your regularly scheduled podcast. If you like what you're listening to, why not give us a share, a comment, maybe a shout out on Twitter? We work really hard on this podcast, and it'd be great to, just hear back from our audience. If you don't feel inclined to, I totally get it. Just enjoy the podcast. Without further ado, back to Common Geeking Program.
All right, folks. So we are going to be talking about the television show on Netflix, Altered Carbon. I guess you can't really call it a television show then, can you?
I watch it on television.
A program?
Huh.
Streaming television.
Sure. Okay, whatever. We're talking about Altered Carbon, and we kind of want to talk about it through the lens today of, shows that kind of recast... I mean, not necessarily... Well, in fiction, recast their main character to, have a totally different vibe. Because the core conceit of the television show Altered Carbon, it's set in the future, way, way in the future, and their whole thing is that they have these things the humans have these things in the... Jesus Christ, I can't get a sentence out of my mouth.
The humans have things in their necks called stacks that carry their minds, and they can move from body to body, and it took me 4 episodes to not get grossed out when they called bodies sleeves.
Yeah.
That just sounded really gross for a while, but now I'm kind of on board.
Basically, it's a pseudo immortality in that if their sleeve gets killed, then their stack can be extracted from the sleeve and put into a new body. And then if you destroy the stack, they call that real death.
Yes.
In the show. Death. So our main character is a guy named Takashi Kovacs, and we meet him. He was part of a rebellion back when he was in his birth sleeve. And he ends up getting...
Yeah, I know. It's his first body.
Yeah. So he was in a rebellion back when he was in that body, and we can get into that a little bit later. But basically, he gets killed, and then he's what do they call it? Spun back up.
He's spun back up
after 300 years.
Yeah, after 300 years, and now he's in the body of this white dude.
Yeah, Joel Kinnaman. I actually really like that actor.
He was really good, and I didn't think that I would be watching season 2 with Anthony Mackie and being like, oh, this is not as good. But I was kind of missing that dude, honestly. Just his deep, sultry voice. Yeah, not that Anthony Mackie is great, and I think he did a great job. But anyway, so he's Joel Kinnaman in season 1, basically. But his first body was, God, I should know that actor's name, but I don't.
Will Yoon Lee.
Yeah, there you go.
William-
So he's that actor in kind of flashbacks, but for the majority of season 1, he's Joel Kinnaman, and basically the sort of like real watered down plot is that he's spun back up to investigate a guy's murder, but the guy's still alive because he had himself backed up, but he's not sure who killed him, and blah blah blah, and that it ends up getting crazier stuff like that, and the rebellion ends up getting re-involved. But basically, in season 2, he is now like in a new body because his sleeve gets destroyed at the end of season 1, and he's now played by Anthony Mackie. So it's kind of like, it's the sort of thing where it's just like, oh, they explain it as like, oh, the slight differences in personality are just like the mannerisms of the sleeve, but ultimately it's the same guy.
I enjoyed that explanation because in season 1, now it might also be worth mentioning that season 1 of Altered Carbon got like pretty mixed reviews. Most of them said that like characters too brooding, shows too complicated. I don't know. I clicked and like vibed with it right away. I really love season 1 of Altered Carbon.
I liked the brooding. I agree it was a little bit complicated.
It is very brooding. I do think
it's a noir mystery.
Too dense. I think it's a little too dense on the lingo, especially straight out the gate, because they're like talking about sleeving, cortical stacks, and then they start going into some of the other stuff like needle casting.
It did take me a little while to figure out what the hell is going on in season 1.
I guess I didn't have that problem.
We actually have an
one.
episode of this podcast about season 1 of Altered Carbon.
I think you were
I have
talking.
no idea what episode, but it exists.
It was a while ago. I think Laura hosted it because it was about theme songs.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, Altered Carbon season 2 with Anthony Mackie. It is with Anthony Mackie. This season has a very different vibe. The first season is very noir. A lot of people compared its aesthetic to Blade Runner. I think it's a favorable comparison. And season 2 is a little the showrunner and Anthony Mackie. The showrunner Allison something SCH Shapaker, I think. They both described it as Shakespearean. And I'd say that it's like a conspiratorial, multi-layered action thriller, which is a super different tone.
It took a lot less time than I was expecting it to get back around to the rebellion in season 2, because they more or less set up the same core conceit of him investigating a murder at the beginning of season 2, but it gets resolved very quickly. Because, basically, he's brought onto this new planet in Anthony Mackie's body, or, as a sleeve that has, special, fucking...
Yeah, it's military augmentations.
Military augmentations, so he can fucking reach out his hands, and then guns go across the room, and he's got accelerated healing and stuff like that.
That was a mechanic that was really not used
utilized
enough.
I was going to say,
I think
that
in the
was
whole
not
season,
necessary at all.
If you have an action star, especially one from the MCU who's used to big action scenes, who can literally summon guns to his hands, I really think that you gotta. It's Chekhov's gun hands. You gotta. If you have a gun hand in scene 1, you have to pay it off in scene 3.
One thing that I think is one of the biggest differences in tone is that first season it got the brooding. Because I think Joel Kinnaman's character, he thinks his sister's dead. He thinks the woman that he loves is dead. And there's, this real sad tone. You can see him go through benders and stuff. But in this
he does not want to be spun back up. Yeah,
he didn't want to come back. He kind of just wanted to rage through the universe until he got killed. But Anthony Mackie's portrayal, almost seems, a little wiser. A little more... Not necessarily brooding, but I hate to say apologetic, but understanding, I think would be the better one.
What I was reading about how they wrote his motivation is that part of the reason they had him so dour in season 1 is what you just said. He didn't want to be in his situation at all. He hated how he was. In this season, his former lover and the head of the rebellion, Kelchrist Falconer, who we learn a lot about in season 1.
A young adult's novel's main figure for sure.
Yes, absolutely.
Kelchrist Falconer.
But she comes back, so he has a very personal motivation, and that personal motivation,
right? He's got something to live for.
Yeah. So I guess. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Brian.
Oh, and I think Anthony Mackie, I think he plays it super well. I think I think Joel Kinnaman played the angst really high and it was fun, but Anthony Mackie on the other end is playing this kind of more toned down character, and there's a lot of stuff when he's talking to people, a lot of facial gestures, and a lot of the way he like uses his eyes and the rest of his face. Like, it seems like he is actually like in that moment. Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess I wanted to, since we're talking about how shows that change the lead character over various iterations of the show. I mean, I don't want to jump straight into, like, was one good, was the other better, that sort of thing. But when it comes to the identity of Takeshi Kovacs, we have 3 different actors playing him primarily. We see other sleeves here and there, but we have his birth sleeve, we have the Joel Kinnaman sleeve, and we have the Anthony Mackie sleeve. We have 3 different versions. I did like how in this season they said, like, each sleeve, like you said, Jeff, affects the portrayal of the personality, which is a very Doctor Who style explanation for, like, it's different. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
But like, if you think about it, it makes sense. Different brains have different neurochemistry, which affects the way things work. So if you feed the same data through different brains, you're going to get different performances. So I like that as an explanation. But when we're looking at these 3 different portrayals of Takeshi Kovacs, how effective do you guys think it is in creating a single character that you can latch onto?
I think it actually works out pretty well for the overall way the story is written out, especially this season, because you actually have on the same screen a young Takeshi Kovacs and an old Takeshi Kovacs. So you can see, I think it's really good, almost like a character study where you can compare old and new and the differences and how they're a lot still the same.
Right. And to explain that a little bit, like throughout the like halfway through the season, one of his adversaries.
Yeah, big boy spoilers here.
One of his adversaries who like had this personal connection to him from back like before he was part of the rebellion, basically had a stored copy of his like identity from before he joined the rebellion. So this is when he was still like a government agent, like special ops agent basically, and he spins him back up in like basically a new version of his birth sleeve. So we've got like, you know, pre-rebellion Takeshi Kovacs in his birth sleeve versus, you know, old withered now like fucking 400 years later Takeshi Kovacs in
it's kind of like if you're playing Skyrim and very early on in the game you make a mistake and don't realize it, and then when you're like 30 hours in, you're like, oh shit, I want to go back and change it. But when you go back, you forget you don't have all your cool weapons, you don't have all your cool allies, and it's really hard to actually go back to that earlier save in the game. And I don't know, I really clicked with that sort of thing of young Kovacs running around not knowing what the fuck is going on or who anyone is. I'm like, I've been there.
I've been gone for 300 years. What the fuck?
It's also, I don't know, it's pretty interesting because like I feel like we got a lot of the characterization of Takeshi Kovacs kind of out of the way in season 1. So Anthony Mackie is like allowed to just be that same character without having to like explain anything new, which I think allowed it to be more able for like other characters to be explored a little bit more too. Like we got a lot of Poe, who is the only character I think that continued from season 1 to 2 as the same actor.
He's the only actor who's a series regular in both seasons. The actress for Kel Christ Falconer is the same person, but she was recurring in season 1.
Yeah, she's only in a handful of episodes and like for a couple minutes at a time.
Right, because it was just in flashbacks and stuff. Yeah, so we get a bit more from Poe, who is his sort of rogue AI friend who has a great character concept of just this AI that's based off of Edgar Allan Poe.
So good. Honestly, I am so glad they found a way to bring him back. And honestly, I
missed Ortega a little bit.
Yeah, Ortega was a lot of fun. But him being brought back and like him just being a little bit different, a little bit more zanier this time around with the glitch is great. I love every minute of it. The facial expressions are worth like whatever they paid him, they should double it because his face is so emotive. Yeah, and like that moment, it's great.
And I really liked the characterization we actually got out of Falconer this season.
Yeah.
Like, making her an actual character in the plot rather than just in flashbacks and some, like, abstract motivation is that, like, we get to see more of, like, what makes her tick, especially since, like, she's got sort of, like, memory lapses a lot of the season. So it's really interesting to kind of, like, I think it's rare that we have a character that's built up as much as she is in like a previous season as basically just like a one-dimensional like figure of like, oh, this is this person's lost love who he's searching for. It's rare to have that character then transition to be like an actual regular cast member who is then explored in their own right. And I think that they did it really well in a way that felt really nuanced without like changing any of the things that were established in season 1.
I think the actor Renee Elise Goldsberry, which is a great last name, she
almost
really,
as good as Falconer.
Yeah, fucking a great actor, like amazing actor.
Yeah, she's great.
So I think that if we're talking about shows, and you guys seem like pretty positive about the transition to Anthony Mackie and how he sort of made the character his own.
I will say the first episode was a bit of a slog, and it felt like Anthony Mackie was kind of repeating some of this stuff. I wouldn't be surprised if there was a teleprompter in front of his face.
Yeah,
there was like one sentence. There was like one sentence was like, "Yeah, you brought me back with a cortical stack, and I'm a blah blah blah." And I was like, "Wow, you are not liking this line."
Yeah, I'll get into some of my thoughts on that in a bit, but I think that if we're talking about shows that change lead actors for the same character, I think we also have to pay attention to what happens behind the scenes in terms of the writing staff and the producers, because usually a change in actor is accompanied by a new showrunner or a new writing staff or a new producer.
And was that the case with Altered Carbon?
Yes, it was. So the show's creator. The show's creator is still a writer and executive producer on the show for season 2, but they did change showrunners. At first, I thought that a lot of the tonal differences were that. Like, also, the first season it has a lot more maturity, a lot more gore, violence, and nudity just across the board.
True.
Season 1 is much just darker across the board. And season 2 feels like the Disneyfication of that in a lot of ways to me. It felt
violent.
It felt like I was watching a PG-13 movie. Like, I just watched Alita Battle Angel, which, fun fact, person who created Altered Carbon TV show wrote Alita Battle Angel. So I was like, I really got that, like, teen movie vibe from this season. And I think the casting of Anthony
Mackie...
Mackie...
the floor thing definitely added to that vibe, I think. It's just, like, very, like, big budget action movie thing.
and if we're talking about how a changing actor affects these shows... It's really important to look at the fact that usually that casting decision is made as a reaction to what those writers and producers are doing. And they were going for like a more PG-13 feel, and they got a very famous PG-13 actor.
Yeah.
And I think that drives a lot of it. I think that drives his performance, because the times his performance worked are when he was playing into that. The times for me it didn't work is when he was mimicking Joel Kinnaman, who was cast for a different reason by different people.
I definitely think that, like, I don't know, like the tonal shift in the show, and maybe it's just because I hadn't seen the first season in such a long time, it didn't feel that jarring to me. Like, it felt like it was all accompanied by, like, oh, this is different because the plot is different. You know what I mean?
And that's a lot of what I was reading. Is I thought it was just the bland Disneyfication, but it really was like, well, this is not a story about sex workers and murderers. This is a story about military officers and politicians. So I think it does change to match that effectively, but it's
like on a new planet too. So it's like, you know, there's so many different changing parts. There's a lot to account for why the show feels different.
Yes.
I also think they didn't want to retread the same tire.
Yeah,
because they had him brooding, they had the excessive murder. They wanted to show that there was because it's also 30 years have passed since 30 plus years have passed since the original season. So I think they wanted to show a transition. He's still a violent guy, he still kills people, but he's not like wanton and like doesn't give a fuck anymore. He has some amount of scruples.
Yeah,
and I guess, what if this was cast as somebody else? What if this was not Anthony Mackie? Like, is Anthony Mackie the best person to convey that, in your guys' opinion? This toned down, personally driven Takeshi Kovacs.
I don't know. It's hard to say. I think that the whole shtick of coming back with a new actor in season 2, like, if they're continuing with the show, which through the plot of the show it feels like they are, like, I think it's necessary for it to be another person almost every season, like, with some exceptions.
I mean, both Joel and Anthony were each signed for one season and one season only, so our next season is going to be somebody else. We just don't know who yet.
Yeah, so because then it feels like, you know, like if if it just continued on with Anthony Mackie and Joel was just season 1, then it would feel like, oh, we had problems with Joel, so we recast him. Whereas if it's a new person every season, that becomes kind of part of the core conceit of the show.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think this also calls into question maybe the most famous example of a science fiction program that changes lead actors.
Speaking of Broadchurch.
Speaking of David Tennant and Jodie Whittaker.
Yeah.
So Doctor Who is probably the show that is most famous. Fuck off. I haven't watched it since the first season of Capaldi, of Peter Capaldi, the 12th
I am
Doctor.
all caught up, so if you want any insights.
Yeah, well, so the reason Doctor Who keeps standing out of my mind is typically the change in actor is accompanied by a change in showrunner or a change in writing staff. Tennant left the show to make sure that when Stephen Moffat took over from Chris Chibnall, to make sure that he would have a new actor and he could set his own tone and do his own thing, and then they hired Matt Smith.
So Tennant and Christopher Eccleston were the same showrunner,
They were both under Chris Chibnall. I believe Matt Smith and Peter Capaldi were both Stephen Moffat, and then when Moffat quit as showrunner and handed it off to... Oh, wait, no, it's Chris Chibnall now, isn't it?
I think
it was
right.
Russell T Davies was the showrunner.
It
was Russell T Davies, then Moffat, and then Jodie Whittaker took over when Chris Chibnall did.
So this is for the Tenet vehicle? Him and his Tenet's vehicle?
So it's something where...
Can I request that we only refer to the different doctors as sleeves?
I mean, it's accurate.
The 10th sleeve and the 11th sleeve. I think probably the most famous transition, because David Tennant is considered like the ultimate Doctor for a lot of our generation of Doctor Who fans.
Right.
And a lot of people also love Matt Smith. And that was, to me, that mirrors the transition from Kinnaman to Mackie, where we had a change in actor, someone who like really defined the role for a lot of people, to someone who successfully picked it up for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But it's a big shift. And I think everything hinges around that production staff, and the actor is just the person that presents that. But I think the whimsical nature of Doctor Who works for me a little more. I gotta say, I didn't really jive with Anthony Mackie kind of at all this season.
Really?
I did not enjoy his casting.
I thought that he did well, but like I think that he did well, but like a lot of the things that I really liked about the character were things from Joel Kinnaman's performance that I did miss. So it was like, I enjoyed whenever Anthony Mackie was on screen, but then every time there was like, with other characters, and then we're about to go back to Takeshi Kovacs, I'm like, but he's not going to be there. It's going to be Anthony Mackie.
And because I thought that Joel Kinnaman I think this in everything. I've seen him, House of Cards, even Suicide Squad. He was one of the few bright spots of that movie. He was Rick Flag.
Just eating a piece of chicken aggressively.
I don't even know if you could say that was a bright spot and whatever.
I mean, he was one of the most competent. Like, he seemed like the person in the middle of the movie, like, I hate this. Just get me the fuck out of here. And I guess I just identified with that when I was sitting in the theater.
But the whole thing hitched around his stupid love interest with the fucking villain. It was so whatever.
But,
we can talk about
also,
Suicide Squad another time.
he's in a sci-fi show on Apple TV called For All Mankind, and I think he does. Oh, nice. He's really good at, one, being brooding, but two, communicating a lot of his emotions through that brooding nature. To me, Anthony Mackie in this role does not have a lot of command of subtlety.
He's
and this
is
where
a sweetheart, you know?
And that's it. It feels like he wants to be a nicer guy than the show is asking him to be.
Yeah,
and this is why I wanted to bring up Doctor Who, because I think that switch from Tennant to Smith, it was primarily a tonal shift. I don't think Smith is any less capable an actor than Tennant, or less suited for the writers he was working for. It's just you either liked the tone better or you didn't.
Yeah.
In this, I don't think, and this is not to cast shade on him, but I don't think Anthony Mackie can convey the multiple levels of a person that has been in multiple bodies, murdered his sister, is chasing like his dead love. Like, I don't get any emotion from him aside from, I'm on a mission now. Like he plays the in the moment part well, and beyond that, I had no real connection to him.
I'm going to say I disagree. I enjoyed his performance. I think there's a lot of moments, especially in the close-up, where he, when it's some dialogue being spoken between two people, where you can see a lot of emotion on his face. I think that kind of works, the way you're saying, like, oh, he's trying to be a nicer character than the script has him be. I think that works a little bit for the character, because he's definitely a different guy. He feels like a different character. He feels like he is trying to be nicer. Like, original Joel Kinnaman would not be carrying around a damaged AI, and let alone keep one that kept on kind of fucking up. He is keeping him around because he feels some sort of connection. He feels for that. He feels for Poe. So I think
it was kind of interesting too. Like, every time he snapped at Poe, there was usually another scene where he was talking to someone else, and he kind of expressed regret that he the scene that's sticking out in my head is he's talking to his the friend who's like the old guy who's one of the founders. And he says something kind of obnoxious to him, and he's like, "Don't lash out at your friends like that." And he's like, "Well, I've been doing that a lot lately." Like, yeah. So he's like, he acknowledges that,
moments, those are the moments I connected with, where he was being a more empathetic person. I think that's what Anthony Mackie is suited for. The moments where he's snapping at Poe, it felt like an imitation of the previous actor, and I guess that's the whiplash I was getting. Is there were moments where I think he brought something new to the table that I really liked, and then moments where he tried to call back. He might have been in an impossible position, but
maybe that was planned.
Yeah, because
maybe you're supposed to get that flavor while you're getting the new flavor. You still get remnants of the old,
Yeah, because I think that is necessary, because like ultimately the way that the story like puts it in fiction is that it's really only the mannerisms that should be changing. Like, the personality should not be changing much. Right? So, like, being in that new brain might cause him to have different personality traits, but most of his character growth should be from his character actually growing, not just the different sleeve
at least
that he's in.
That's the fiction that the show gives us.
Because, like, in Doctor Who, for example, they're like, oh, it messes with your personality when he regenerates. So each Doctor legitimately, like, may have a lot of the same core values, but is a different person, whereas the new sleeves are supposed to be the same person in a new sleeve.
Yeah,
that's true. But I mean, they kind of include that because there is supposed to be a 30-ish year gap between season 1 and season 2.
Yeah. No, what I'm saying is it makes sense when Anthony Mackie is playing a role where he's sort of imitating like things that Joel Kinnaman did. As like I think if they in season 3 or whatever, if they have a different actor, then he should probably be every once in a while imitating both Joel Kinnaman and Anthony Mackie's like sort of thing. You know what I mean?
Imagine season 10 when it's literally just the guy from Spaceballs doing beeps and boops all over the place trying to mimic everything else.
In season 10, he's just a blank slate who's just standing there and be like, shoot some stuff sometimes.
So
it'll be Jeff Dunham doing puppets of all the previous actors.
Oh my god!
I think another bright spot is I do think it's because it's PG-13, and I do think it tries to hit that more middle.
Spoiler alert, Ryan. I don't know if you've seen it. There are titties later, so just gonna put that out there.
I assume there's boobies, but I'm just saying because it's aimed a little bit more PG-13. It's a little less brooding, at least in the mid to early sections. I do think, generally speaking, it has been better received than the first season.
Very widely,
Metacritic has it around 80, which is pretty decent.
That's very good for Metacritic.
I think that the first season was a little bit more niche in what it was going for, so it probably attracted fewer people. Like, fewer people were probably able to keep up with what was going on, but the people who were able to keep up probably enjoyed that like more intensely than the people who liked second season, would be my theory on that. But it's probably getting more wide claim, because it's a little bit more not basic, but kind of by the book than season 1 was, I would say.
I think I don't have the question fully formed in my head, but I want your guys' thoughts on this. Season 1 was criticized a lot for, like Ryan said, for being dense, trying to get a lot of world building information that is critical to the characters across very quickly, and it's complicated, and I think it succeeded because I understood it all right away without geting lost. But it's also my kind of show. Like, I'm exposed to that a lot more than most people, I guess. But season 2 is praised for not getting bogged down in that. But season 2 has a lot of character complications that wouldn't succeed unless season 1 had gotten it out of the way. So the burden is only on season 1. If we're talking about the amount of stuff that is introduced, season 2 introduces us to a lot less information quantitatively.
You know one thing it introduces?
What? The Elder?
Simone Missick as Trep, which she's great.
She's
I'm
good.
a big fan of hers.
I like her.
Simone Missick. She's Misty Knight from Luke
Cage.
Cage.
I had a hard time seeing her as because she has very similar character.
Yeah, exactly.
Traits.
It's a little jarring, but I fucking love Simone Missick. I think she's like 10 out of 10 bombshell like actor. Like I'm down for it.
What was I trying to say?
What you like because season 1, I feel like put down a lot of the groundwork so that we could go into season 2 and already have you didn't have to set up any new concepts, but they still did play with the concepts that were set up in season 1.
Yeah, I guess the three of us are not the people to ask, but like if you start with season 2, does it work?
Probably. I mean, it would probably be more confusing, right?
I think it's a little too jarring, but they do have a pretty lengthy almost like last time on Altered Carbon. Like if you start it for the first time on Netflix, which probably I didn't watch it because I didn't care, but I'm sure it explains a lot of the concepts pretty well.
Yeah, it does. It explains like this is the stack. This is a stack on drugs. Don't do drugs.
This is a sleeve. This is a sleeve on drugs. His name is
sleeves.
Joel Kinnaman.
Yeah, they only mentioned a lot of the characters that were kind of talked about. Like there was in the recap, there was like basically nothing on Ortega or like the other not Poe sidekick characters or like the guy whose murder he was investigating, who was, I would say, a pretty big character in season 1.
Yeah, but again, the any previously on is not designed to give you a full summary of the previous thing. It's designed to give you what you need for this, and I think it does. But I would be very curious to know if it works because I guess I'll just spoil it now. I don't think I enjoy season 2 as much as season 1, and I'm definitely in the minority on that. But I guess I'd want to know, for everybody who's saying season 2 is so much better, can you get the same appreciation for the show if you're coming in blind at season 2? Like, it's a weird thing because this is a quasi-anthology show, but it's also a continuous plot line. They're isolated, but they're inextricable. It's a weird paradox.
I mean, Colin, I don't think most people that say that season 2 is like the season 2 of a show is better than season 1 are really advocating for not at all watching season 1. I know you're like Star Trek Next Generation is like, just start at season 3, but like, I don't know. If you've seen evidence to the contrary, go ahead.
Why season 2 is actually the perfect time to get into Altered Carbon. And at the bottom of this article is literally just start there. And I'm like,
damn.
I don't know. It might work very well, and I think a lot of the problem for me might be I'm bringing my affection for season 1 into the picture, and it's like it might be an impossible standard for me as a person, especially to hear that you guys have kind of opposite opinions. And I know Ryan, you're now a big Anthony Mackie stan.
Oh, I'm all for Anthony Mackie.
I'm actually more on your side with it, Colin. I think I like season 1 as all. Well, I don't know. I think that season 1 around the end got a little bit messy for me, like around when fucking Ray showed back up. Like they just like ditched a lot of concepts real quick.
They did.
Like I remember like the first moment that I thought like, well, that was not the quality that I've been watching the show previously, is when they go to storm her base or whatever, and there's like one line about how they've disabled all backup, so if they kill her there, then it would be actual death, and it's just like, we're all very chill about that in this world of like big immortals, that should not have been that easy to achieve.
Yeah. I don't know. I think season 2 made a lot of those same mistakes in terms of like jumps in exposition and logic that are just kind of like, all right, if I don't squint too closely, I can come along for the ride. I think the most blatant example was when he's hanging off the cliff and he's like, give me more rope, and she's like, I can't, and he's like, okay, guess I gotta grab the rope.
Yeah.
And it's like they don't even show a camera angle to show that the rope doesn't have slack. It's like 3 feet away. She's like, I can't. It's rope. I can't do it. I don't know. Just like little things like that.
I don't know.
that
Like
would be
season one had
shown a
stuff
little
like
better.
that too. Like the whole thing with
that's what I'm saying.
Poe being as powerful as he was didn't make any goddamn sense.
Yeah.
Because
Agreed.
it's just like, this is a normal thing that exists in this world that nobody uses anymore because they're just kind of over it. But it grants this dude like extreme superpower.
So going back to that scene where she throws him the rope, you're forgetting the antithesis of that scene is that he got thrown off of a cliff, but his body has automatic I can't remember what they're called, like automatic
Survival reflexes.
For survival reflexes. And he just grabbed a ledge and was passed out. Yeah.
His unconscious body was able to grab onto and hold onto a teeny tiny little ledge for like hours. It was night when he fell.
Hold on, why the fuck
daytime.
should his body even have been unconscious at that point? He was conscious when he was thrown off the cliff. Why would he be unconscious when he was hanging off of it?
Yeah, no, I don't know. Maybe he went into shock or something. It was weird.
I like the concept of him being asleep and holding onto it. I'm like, oh, cool, his body can do that. After the gun hands, I'm willing to accept anything those hands can do. Fine.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Those are magic hands.
His hands attract cliffs the same way they attract guns.
Yes! He's an earthbender now. The whole
all traits that dogs are known to have. You know, that wolf canine DNA that was spliced with his body.
They talked about that so much, but it really never seemed to make a difference.
yeah.
I mean, it was just for the metaphor at the beginning where the guy walks in and he's just like, "What's the difference between wolves and dogs?" And he's just like, "If you kick a dog, then it'll whimper and ask for forgiveness. If you kick a wolf, it'll rip your face off. By the way, I also have wolf DNA, and you didn't know that before you insulted me, fucker."
I guess it's maybe better that they didn't explain it, because it would probably have been don'ts. Like, oh, they can smell better because they're wolf genes or something.
Also,
but
hey, fuck you. I'm Ryan, I'm sorry, I know you haven't fucking seen this point yet, and slight spoiler. Well, it's kind of a spoiler, but when he's like, "Oh, you can't fucking... When you can't pull the trigger on me because like your body won't let you do it," and then he's like, "Yeah, but you can," and he pulls his finger to pull the trigger. Like
that is okay. That might be a spoiler because there's an earlier part. I think it's episode 3 or 2. Where like the same thing happens.
That's not a spoiler, but the payoff for it. Sense.
Okay. Another thing that I think we're not even making good comparisons now. We're just dunking on the show. How it's like I know that this is your relative. It's your brother, right? Yeah, we envoys, we have total perception and can see everything. But then Simone Messick's character Trep is just like watching them walk through the woods from like 30 feet away, and she's like, "Oh, let me duck behind this tree," and they just keep going. I'm like, okay, you really need to color this line because you can tell that someone's dead brother is being worn as a necklace, but she's standing right there. What's the... I don't know. Anyway, I guess we should probably get back to the main theme here. Yeah. If we're talking about comparing season 1 and season 2, season 1 is noir, season 2 is action. How did you guys feel about the world itself? We're obviously on a different planet this season, but it's still the same spaceborne, cyberpunk, body switching setting. Which season, from all angles, character, production, writing, which one do you think did a better job of fleshing out the world to you?
I mean, they work a little bit in tandem. I think that it fell into a bit of a trap in season 2 that a lot of shows do, where they have a very like vast, unknowable thing in the earlier seasons, and then when they start to get into those explanations, it almost dumbs it down a little bit. Like the whole thing, like Stax was like this very abstract thing in the first season, and like, all these people have been immortal for however long, and then in season 2 is just like, this is when the founders arrived, this is what they did, then they invented Stax from there, and it was like, oh, okay, well, when you put it like that, it makes it a little bit less like mysterious and untouchable.
Because season 1 was so much about like the class difference between meths, the immortal people, and sort of lower class people who just have to switch bodies every now and again. Like it paid closer attention to the nuance of how stacks were treated. And season 2, it does feel kind of binary. I did like that season 2 got into the elders. In season 1, all they had was the tree, and season 2 explores the race that tree comes from and how the stack technology came to exist, but it does drop a lot of those details. I even felt it in the production, like in season 1, the sets felt small and crowded like Blade Runner, but there were so many of them, shot from so many angles that it felt larger. And in season 2, I felt like they had that one above ground location shoot with the buildings around it, and that one hallway with the one neon sign that served as like every crowded area, and I didn't get like anything
and then
besides
the government
those...
place where Danica and Jaeger are, and then
like it weirdly felt smaller. Yeah. I don't know. That's a bit of a detriment for me because
I would say the one thing that I think was pretty I think I generally agree with you that I like season 1 a little bit better, but I think the one thing that was a lot better for me in season 2 was actually the antagonists. I did not fucking like Rey as an antagonist very much at all.
I liked her, but it was so backloaded in the season because the first bunch of it was about the mystery that by the time she revealed herself as the villain, you weren't really connected to her. And season 2 I found more predictable.
I really like Jaeger and Danica. Like, I think that they're both great characters.
Jaeger was great. I think Rey would have made a great season 2 villain. Like if there was a lot of lead up, if she was like in the mix, helping out all this stuff, and at the end of season 1, you find out it's Rey that's behind all this shit, and then season 2 is like him like tracking her down. I think that would have given enough room to breathe to really broaden her out as a character. But
I think it maybe if she hadn't died in season 1 and that we got more from her in season 2. But it was, she felt like a little bit one note. It was just like, your sister, and then she turned like super sadistic evil, and that's kind of that. Like, we didn't really get to explore. Like, we got like lines about why she was characterized the way she was, but we didn't really get to like see the decisions she was making. She was just kind of like the antagonist.
Yeah, it's like, I've lived for 300 years. I'm like becoming a shitbag. I can tell I'm becoming a shitbag. I would very much like my brother to murder me now. Like, that sort of thing.
Whereas, like, Jaeger, I think, had more interesting character motivation, whereas, like, I thought that the tension between Jaeger and Danica's characters was really fun, because it's like, you know, like, Danica was a little bit more one note, and it's just like, clearly she's got some shitty shit going on.
Danica, the governor's daughter, right?
Danica Harlem, she's the new governor of...
Can I mention for a second that her dad was played by Neil McDonough, who's an amazing actor, and he just shows up in like three flashbacks? Why are you going to blow your Neil McDonough load? Come on, he's great.
Because they got to make him they have to make him a powerful actor, I think.
They did the same thing in the Sonic the Hedgehog movie. They're like, Neil McDonough's in the trailers, and that was all he was in the movie. I'm like, give me more McDonough. But anyway.
He was just that one like sergeant in the trailer.
Nobody cares! Yes, Jim Carrey, you're right, because he's not in it anymore.
Whereas Jaeger, or I guess they call him Carrera most of the time.
In New Nom de Guerre. Carrera.
He was really interesting because, like, I liked how he had a different motivation from Danica Harlem, and then he also had the separate motivation of like still having this connection to Kovacs.
He wanted his son, I guess. They had a father-son like relationship.
Yeah, that was pretty much he was like his golden boy, and then his golden boy turned on him and joined the rebellion, and he's like, I want baby come back. Takashi come back
so much. He's a little star daddy.
I've gone about 45 minutes without doing it so far, but brace yourselves, it's Star Trek time.
I figured.
All right, let me turn off my headphones and mic and end this recording.
No, this is going to be.
I wish I was a little bit better at napping.
This is going to be pretty brief because while we've already scientifically determined altered carbon is the middle point between Eberron and Broadchurch, I think it is. I think you can more accurately say it's kind of the middle point between your Doctor Who's, your very fantasy, whimsical, nonsensical, non-continuous but continuous sci-fi, and your Star Trek, so your very rigid stuff. And I just want to mention a counterpoint, because in Star Trek Discovery, in the first season, we have a captain played by Lucius Malfoy, and he's great.
Yeah.
And then, spoiler alert, he's not great, and then he dies. And then in season 2,
guess I don't have to watch it now.
Well, at the end of season 1, which had a very dark tone, and people were like, "This doesn't feel like Star Trek." In season 2, it's a little more swashbuckling, a little more adventure-y, and they get a different captain played by a different actor. And by the end of season 2, we still don't know who the captain of the ship is. And I guess I want to bring this up because Discovery is sort of mimicking Altered Carbon in that, like, there's this uncertainty around a very principal character and what they'll be going forward, but it's the same story. Versus Doctor Who, which is the same story, but, like, again, it's new writers, new producers, new everything. Like, it is meant to be a reset every time they get a new actor. And I like the idea in all its forms, and I'm always excited for a new one, but if you're thinking about these other shows and how they build up hype for the next season, like, are you excited for the next Takeshi Kovacs? Or are you, like, just kind of like, that was a good season? Like, have they built up that anticipation successfully?
No, not really. I don't think. I'm interested to see what the new take on it is, but again, since the conceit of the show is the personality is supposed to be largely the same, it's not like, oh, I'm interested to see, like, what kind of personality they bring to it, because I expect it and do kind of want it to stay similar to the same character. Like, I'm okay with him growing as a character, but, like, with Doctor Who, it's always like, oh, when there's a new Doctor announced, it's like, well, let's see how this show goes, because it will be a different show. Mm-hmm. And I'm feeling that right now. Like, I like Jodie Whittaker as the Doctor, but the writing of the show is, in my opinion, very poor. So, like, next time a new showrunner comes up in Doctor Who, I'm going to be pretty excited about it.
Yeah, and I mean, go ahead, Ryan.
Oh, so I was going to say, it does allow for, like, the dumb version of time travel. They can cross huge gaps of time and be like, oh, it's because he's just literally a disc in a meat bag. He's been spun down, or even beyond that, he's just been switching bodies the entire time. Yeah. So they can, like, if there is an inconsistency,
they can just go far enough away that it's not a problem.
Yeah, it's like, oh, this is 100 years.
That's
now,
a good
and
point.
He loves long walks on the beach and taking out his girlfriend for Chinese food. Like, they could make that jump, and then there could be, like, this rom-com style for third season that I think would be very lovely.
Judd Apatow's going to be the showrunner for season 3.
Oh my god!
Adam Sandler is Takashi Kovacs.
And Poe just plays the stern but charming butler.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, so Ryan, do you think that, like, in the way that these other shows are successful in cultivating excitement for the next iteration, like, are you pumped for the next Takeshi, or how do you feel about it?
I am pretty excited for the third season, but I think Netflix has a pretty bad track record for when it comes to, like, third seasons.
Yeah. Do you watch
Daredevil?
Do you watch Dear White People?
I do.
Yeah, in season 3, the whole season, they keep saying, like, shut up, you sound like the third season of a Netflix show. And I'm just like, you guys. And season 3 was great, so that was fun.
Yeah, so I lost my train of thought. But what I was going to say is that, first of all, the distance between the time between season 1 and season 2 was already 2 years. And it was just around enough time where I had more or less was not thinking about it my day to day. So we'll see. Season 3 might be 2 years or it might not be at all. Like, things just, with the way Netflix makes stuff, like, if it doesn't pop the way they want it to pop, it's gone. And they'll keep the rights, they'll keep all the stuff, and it's just stuck in limbo for the rest of eternity until they officially cancel it, like, 4 years later.
Yeah. Like, I wouldn't say that I'm excited to see who the new Takeshi Kovacs is, but when it rolls around, like, I don't even think I'm in dire need of season 3 to happen right now, because they left it on a more or less pretty concrete note. But, like, when season 3 does roll around and it comes out and, like, they start talking about it, I'm going to be like, oh, okay, I like that show, I'll watch it. You know what I mean? Yeah, so it's not going to be like, oh, damn, can't wait for that to come out, but I'm down for it.
It's not quite a Stranger
I would agree that the world changing... Like, the world changing, I think, is going to be more exciting to me than whoever the new Takeshi Kovacs is. You know what I mean? Because they can do that. It was like, oh, yeah, you've been down for, like, 5 million years. Whoa!
Well,
you know?
I have read some of the books. I've read, not fully read, but I have, like, glossed through some of the books.
There's a book.
There are some, like, pretty cool things that happen in the book. So I think one of the things that if they wanted a third season, at some point, they do find an alien ship and like he's like the guy on the ship. He finds it. So
I could dig that.
So that would be pretty interesting.
That excites me.
I mean, who knows?
Yeah.
Because I think the aliens have actually figured out like interstellar travel, not just like needle casting, like sending your consciousness. So it would be kind of cool.
Yeah, I have. I've looked some. I have two last things to say. First is season 3. I don't believe has been officially ordered yet. But it looks as though the person talking about season 3 plans is the showrunner for season 2, which is Alison Chapker. So we probably are going to see a consistency in style a little bit, but who knows? Yeah, like Ryan said, if they draw from a different book like they did with season 2, it might affect the tone. Other thing I want to say, I made the Earthbender joke earlier. What if it's been hundreds of millions of years and then he wakes up in the ice and he's the last airbender and then it's just that. And that's how
we didn't even talk about Avatar.
And then this is the Avatar live action show, Altered Carbon, the last airbender.
Oh my goodness. We didn't even, because like that's another show that, I mean, we don't have time to talk about it a lot, but like the shift from Last Airbender to Legend of Korra, like I feel like, and that was interesting too, because it since it was like fucking, I don't know, like 50 years later or 60 years later, like it did get to like change the world a little bit in interesting ways, but yeah. Anyway, you guys want to hop over to their rating section?
Hell no, you're going to have to drag me there. Drag me if you want me to come.
Hey, Ryan.
Ryan. There's Eberron in the rating section.
I was going to say the same thing. There's Eberron in the ratings. Come on. Come have fun with us.
As long as I get to talk about aberrant marks, we're solid.
Well, thank you guys for that discussion. I can't really think of a great adjective for it.
I was about to say, we don't get an adjective for that discussion?
No adjective. It was all over the board, you know? We had some ups, we had some downs. I had a good time. But now we're going to be moving on to the rating section.
I think we at least covered all the components of a show that changes season to season.
One sec. I'm gonna plug in my laptop because it's on 3%.
So, Ryan, I actually have to tell you, now that we're in the ratings, there is no Eberron here.
Well, you forget, Eberron is wherever I make it. So let's talk about Sharn, Colin. Do you know anything about Sharn? It's a
Chatter, can you edit in a
Skype
hang-up sound, like right here? Because I'm leaving.
So Sharn is the major metropolis.
Are you goddamn kidding?
Freyland.
Jeff,
Freyland is one of the 5
you were literally gone for 10
countries
seconds,
of Corvair.
This is not even. Oh my goodness.
So Corvair was founded about 1,000 years ago. No, I don't know.
All right, guys. So we're in the rating section. Now we are going to each rate the topic on a scale from 1 to 10. God, I want to say stacks, but that's so fucking boring. We have any better ideas for things we could...
In
1
lieu
to
for
10?
the first season, I was going to say
Sleeves?
1 to 10, Carrera's fucking a... fucking... What was it? Fucking a... It was a horse. Carrera? It was like a cartoon horse.
What
the
fuck?
Oh,
yeah, I do.
So he's like, oh, we're not getting anything from his mind wipe. It's like, well, anything? It's like, well, we're getting something. What is it? It's like, and then it's just him.
And then Anthony Mackie just smiles a little bit. I'm gonna say scale from 1 to 10 sleeves. I think that's appropriate. Like, how many bodies do you need to get through this show?
But is that a bad thing?
No, it's a good thing. It's just like, you know, you watch the show and you're like, damn, I need a fucking cigarette. How good that episode was. I'm gonna have to just change out of my old sleeve and change into my new sleeve.
That episode was so good. I need to light up my spare body like a cigarette and smoke it through the feet.
I need to exfoliate.
So if you only have to do that once, I'd say that's still pretty good. But if you up to 10 times. So yeah, let's hear from it. Colin, you want to tell me how many sleeves out of 10 you would rate Altered Carbon season 2? Are we talking about season 2 or the whole shebang?
I think
let's do season 2.
Yeah, let's rate season 2 because that's what we watched to prepare for this conversation.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the exercise of trying to compare season 1 and 2 because, like I said earlier, it's quasi-anthology. It is a different start in season 2, but it is much more connected to season 1 than a lot of shows that would make this kind of jump. And it didn't all work for me. Going to that moment where they're reading Takeshi's mind and then he pranks them with the image of Carrera fucking a giant unicorn just to piss him off and troll him. Like, that is a moment that I think should have worked for me. I love those kind of out of left field jokes. But then when it cut to him and he had that close up smile, I was like, that smile, like, turn that smile down 10 degrees, dog. You look like you're having a wet dream right now. You're so happy about this fucking unicorn.
Well, that's the thing, is that
he kind of is. I mean, he is having a dream. He is forcing a dream of sexual conduct down their throat.
Yes, but he is not being pleasured.
I bought that sort of antics from Joel Kinnaman's character. I don't know if I bought that sort of antics from Anthony Mackie's character.
That's the thing. So I think that moment sort of encapsulates season 2 for me in that it has some. It does. It has some unique stuff, some surprising stuff, some really good stuff. But it also, I think, misses the mark a little bit. The moment doesn't totally come together for me. And I think it's because a lot of these shifts in changing the actor and changing the direction of the story, I think that they let go of some of the stuff in season 1 that I liked. And again, I know a lot of people had trouble with season 1, but I didn't. And because of that, I'm going to give season 2 6 out of 10. It's not bad. It is good. It's a good, fun TV show, but I was never really feeling connected to it. I was always missing season 1, the world of season 1, the tone of season 1. Even though the story held together a little tighter in season 2, I felt like it was a bit of a trade. And if we get more of this show in the future, I would like to see them do something totally different. I'm fine with the fact that season 2 is different, but if it turns into a show where, like, season 1 was its own thing and every future season is like a single show, that'll bum me out. But if every season is a different thing, then, you know, it's like Doctor Who. You have your favorite doctors, you have the ones you don't like. Like, you can pick and choose the ones that you'd like. So that's what I hope for the show. Because I'd probably give season 1 an 8, and I give season 2 a 6, and I'm hoping season 3 is different.
All right, Ryan, how about you? How many sleeves does Altered Carbon get?
To give Everon 10 out of 10 sleeves. But I will give. I think Altered Carbon, it hits the spot with me. I enjoyed it thoroughly. Probably 8 to 8.5 sleeves. I enjoyed Anthony.
What the fuck are you doing with half a sleeve, you monster?
Just half an Anthony.
Just the bottom.
Right,
just the bottom half for fucking.
Just the bottom half.
Just want to say, no one wanted to do 0.75 when we were out of 5, but now we're out of 10. It's like, oh, now we can do fucking 8.5. That's why I made it out of 10, so we didn't have to do that anymore.
Well, I only want the top piece of Anthony Mackie, because if I am going to have sex with him, I wish for consent. But
what?
You said
I see.
Colin said I only wanted the bottom half, and I am a man of consent.
Yeah, you can't get affirmative consent from an asshole. You're right.
He can't give you like a thumbs up with his toe or something.
He can't give you a little booty wink.
No. But I think I enjoyed Anthony Mackie's portrayal. I enjoyed a lot of like the newer characters that they added. I thought they brought back Poe. I really enjoyed his characterization. It almost felt like a different character in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed some of the B plot of Poe's glitch and how he was kind of fighting for this kind of human element of himself. I thought that was interesting, and it's something they didn't really portray in the first one that's kind of evolved. He got roots, so to speak. Yeah. And I love the fact that it got right into the stuff with Quell. Like the second episode, you knew exactly what was going on, and it kept on going on to that, and I thought it was a good story. I really enjoyed it. I thought there were some lacking elements. The sets felt a little small. The city itself felt very small. But I thought some of the action pieces could have been done a little better. I thought there was
especially
way too many
with gun hands.
Yeah, I thought there was a lot of stuff that was left on the table in that terms, but also like the fight scenes themselves. I don't really remember the first season after we watch it. I didn't remember there being that like the gratuitous number of cuts there were in this one during a fight scene that are a little jarring. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of stuff that's left on the table in terms of like he did have gun hands. He could have used gun hands. Trep had like these coils, and they only really came up as a MacGuffin.
That got
they were never
used.
really.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, they were just a MacGuffin. It's like, oh, I found you because of my coils, and I thought that would felt a little wasted. It'd have been nice to see some, because it seemed like people with coils are almost hunted because they're a very valuable thing, but you don't really see any of that. You don't see any of that prejudice. You don't see any of that cost to having something so useful. I thought that was a bit wasted. But overall, I thought it was great, and I thought there's definitely moments that I think I enjoyed more in the first season, but I think I enjoyed this one maybe a little bit better because it had a bit more emotional depth than I think the first one did. I think the one was very brooding, and I think there is some emotionality that you can have with that, but you can also just be unemotional and a brooding. And I think the first one had a little bit too much of that. He was brooding for brooding's sake.
Yeah, that's fair. And to throw my own opinion into the ring here, I'd say I probably land somewhere in between there. I think I'm gonna set with like a solid 7 out of 10 sleeves.
Not a 7.5?
No, not 7.5, just 7.
Well, yeah, he did say 8.5, so you're at 7.25 if you want to fall smack dab in the middle.
I don't need a fall smack dab. Not quite as
Some
in the middle
toesies,
as
some
Altered
Anthony,
Carbon
some
is
Anthony
between. I don't need to be quite as in the middle as Altered Carbon is between Broadchurch and
The
Eberron.
0.25 is the guns attached to the hands. That's what.
Yeah, it's just guns and hands just floating around.
Maybe if they'd used the gun hands a little bit more, we could have gotten up to 7.25.
It was such a cool thing that just really did not get used enough.
It was just unnecessary. Like I think that they could have taken that ability out and just said he had like better healing and stuff, and it would have been exactly the same. The gun hands were just like an extra flair that wasn't used well enough to justify it being there. But
I feel like it was gonna have payoff, but they're like, VFX budget's running a little low.
What's the VFX budget? Just have someone throw it to him from off stage.
It's like we can't bust this nut. Sorry,
yeah,
guys.
I am curious though, like, and I haven't looked into it, but like, how much budget was shifted from the general production to hiring a Disney star? Like I kind of feel like a lot of the money went into Anthony Mackie, which is fine. But also in season,
I wonder if it was negotiated because they did have a deal with Disney. Maybe some rights to using actors was negotiated years ago, and they're just now starting to get to the point where they have to use it or lose it because of all the stuff that's leaving. So.
That's possible. Well, I've actually one last question on the topic. In season 1, there were no gun hands. In season 2, there were gun hands. In season 3, what should his hands do? I think they should pull whole new sleeves. So it's just like, I got 2 bodies. Which one am I going into? He just gravity guns people.
Well, let me remind you that that maybe a bit of a spoiler for Ryan, but that old boy Takeshi Kovacs in his birth sleeve also has gun hands, and he is still around. So gun hands will still be present.
Birth sleeve had gun hands? See,
Yep.
this is what I'm talking about.
Them.
Season 1 of Altered Carbon did so much work allowing us to have this inane conversation. Because I just said birth sleeve have gun hands, and you was like, yes, I understand you, Colin.
Well, it was a throwaway. It was a throwaway scene where they're like, we upgraded your body, and like all of a sudden a gun shoots off a table, and Enzo says, "Ooh, I like this."
Yeah. It's like when he got
me never take advantage of this.
I can't wait to never use.
Wait a second.
Like,
wait.
In their fight together, they could have been both gun-handing the same gun.
That's what I was thinking. That's what I was thinking. Are the gun hands tied to specific guns, or could they just be like, you have a gun in your hand?
So.
It's in my hand now.
It said in the first episode that they're like bio-locked or whatever.
Yeah,
that's fair.
It's vague enough that I like Jeff's idea and want it to happen. That's my vote for
It's like
history.
in fucking
imagine
The Last Jedi when they're like
standoffs.
No. Imagine. Have you guys seen Equilibrium with Gun Kata?
No.
There is a scene at the end of Equilibrium. It's a Christian Bale Vehicle. And there is a scene where they're like trying to shoot each other in the face, but they're like missing all the time because they're like doing weird gun kung fu. So they're like blocking each other's shots, and that would be more or less gun hands versus gun
I would
hands.
love
No, it's just straight up fucking The Last Jedi when Rey and Adam Driver are fucking, I can't remember, Ben Solo, whatever his name is, are like pulling up the lightsaber
Kylo
and then splitting.
Ren?
Yeah, Kylo Ren.
Oh yeah, when they're just tug-of-warring the gun and then the gun will explode.
Yeah.
You know how that works. The thing that happens all the fucking time, right?
Man, if you guys thought the main part of the podcast was meandering, just fucking wait till the ratings.
For the ratings.
People are going to be like, wow, if we got to the ratings, how could it possibly be the case that there's 30 minutes left? There must be a glitch in the system. Okay, guys, that is going to wrap it up for us today. Thank you all for listening to the Common Geeking Program. Again, I've been your host, Jeff Leavitt. You can find me on Instagram. I've got an Instagram called Things I Wish Existed, and there's a dot between each word. I do, like, visual art stuff on there occasionally when I remember to update it.
Do you have to spell out dot between each word, or is it just a period?
Colin already made that joke, turns out. Bummer.
No, Ryan is Colin was recast as Ryan for season 2 of the Common Geeking Program, and that's his callback to the original performance.
Ha ha! I'm Colin. Star Trek. Sonic the Hedgehog is cool.
You can't.
I don't say
three.
That. I know
you
what
can't
I am.
have Eberron, Star Trek, and Sonic. It's too much.
It's too much power.
Have all of that power.
Speaking of Eberron, Sonic, and Star Trek, who are you guys?
I have been Colin Ketchen, but I won't be anymore. Apparently, the producers have split with me for creative differences, and I'm the producer, so that's weird. But you can find me online at Sonic Colin K. I also do 2 other shows for Common Geeking Program called How You Doin' and Dice Populi. It's all at commongeekingprogram.com, and it's a lot of work. Please listen.
And I have been Ryan Mossbarger, and I was cruelly tricked to be part of this podcast, and I will have my revenge.
The listeners will never know how much of that was scripted and how much wasn't.
It was a lot less scripted than I expected. Let's just say that.
Well, because I in the script that Ryan gave us when I edited it, I like put some lines to you and some lines to me, and then every time Ryan said something, I waited for a second. I was like, oh, he's not going to say it. All right, I'll just say that one too.
Yeah,
I said all my lines.
No, not you, Colin. I wrote some lines for Colin.
Oh, yeah, I didn't have it pulled up at all. I was riffing. I said I would ad-lib, so I ad-libbed.
That's fair.
But if you want to find me, you can find me on Twitter. I am at Ryan_MOSSB, and I'm also on another show on this network, Dice Populi, where I play more or less myself, just a little hungrier. Yeah, that's me. I'm a bone boy.
All right, guys. Our next episode is going to be airing on the 17th of April, so be sure to tune in for that. But anyways, thank you for listening, subscribing, sharing, whatever the hell you do for us. Who knows, really? And we'll talk to you in a month.
And there's going to be a common briefing program in 2 weeks.
Oh yeah, that exists too.
This episode of the Common Geeking Program was hosted by Jeff Leavitt, joined by Colin Ketchen and Ryan Mossbarger. This episode is sponsored by Corona. No, not the beer, the disease. The podcast is created and produced by Colin Ketchen and Jeff Leavitt, and features original music by Colin Ketchen. This episode was edited by me, Taeemul Chowdhury. We'd love for you to stay engaged with us on social media at Geeking Program, or by using #CGP. If you want to know more about us and all of our other projects, head to commongeekingprogram.com. Stay in touch, stay tuned, and as always, thank you for listening to this podcast. Ciao!